Imagine for a moment that death isn't the end of the journey, but a threshold to a new experience, one that involves time itself. Instead of fading into oblivion or transcending into some heavenly realm, what if our consciousness is propelled into the future? Could death be more than just the cessation of life? Could it be the gateway to a profound exploration of time, space, and existence itself? This theory has intrigued not only mystics and spiritual thinkers, but also scientists and philosophers alike. What if, after our bodies fail, our minds are freed from the constraints of linear time, experiencing future existences in ways we cannot yet comprehend? This idea, as wild as it might seem, opens the door to some fascinating questions. What is time? What is consciousness? And how do the two intersect with death? Let's journey through some intriguing scientific principles, strange personal experiences, and mind-bending theories to explore whether we truly might visit the future after we die. Time is something we usually think of as linear, a straight path from past to present to future. However, according to modern physics, particularly Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, time is not as straightforward as we believe. Instead of a fixed sequence of moments, time is fluid and can bend under certain conditions. Einstein showed that time can slow down or speed up depending on how fast you're moving or how close you are to a massive object like a black hole. This phenomenon is called time dilation, and it has been confirmed in numerous experiments. For example, astronauts on the International Space Station experience time slightly more slowly than people on Earth, though the difference is minuscule. This idea, that time is not absolute but changeable, opens up fascinating possibilities. Could consciousness, once freed from the physical body, experience time differently? Could we, in some form, witness the distant future after we die? To explore whether we might experience the future after death, we must first consider the nature of consciousness. Consciousness is often described as the essence of who we are, the subjective experience of being alive, aware, and capable of thought. But what is it, really? Science has yet to provide a clear answer. Some believe consciousness arises purely from brain activity, the result of neurons firing in intricate patterns. This view, however, assumes that once the brain stops functioning, consciousness ends. Yet there are other perspectives. Some theories suggest that consciousness could exist independently of the body, that it is not confined to the biological processes of the brain. If this is true, it raises the tantalizing possibility that consciousness could continue in some form after death, freed from the physical constraints of time and space. In this scenario, what would stop it from experiencing future events or existing in a different time altogether? One of the most compelling stories that hint at the possibility of postmortem time travel comes from the early 20th century scholar Paul Amadas Dinac. Dinac, a professor of French and German, fell ill with a rare condition called encephalitis lethargica, also known as sleeping sickness, in 1921. This illness left him in a coma for an entire year. What happened during that year is nothing short of extraordinary. Dinac claimed that while he was in the coma, his consciousness traveled to the future. He said that he lived the life of a man named Andreas Northman, a resident of the year 3096. According to Dinac, he didn't just observe the future. He inhabited Northman's body, experiencing life as if he were this future individual. Northman, Dinac explained, had been injured in a flying car accident, something that was utterly unimaginable in Dinac's time, but eerily similar to modern-day drones and futuristic transportation concepts. Dinac's story doesn't end there. He kept detailed diaries both before and after his coma, and when he eventually passed away, he entrusted these diaries to a student. The contents were later made public, revealing a series of astonishing predictions about the future. Among his most striking claims was that by the year 2204, Mars would be fully colonized with millions of people living there. He also predicted catastrophic environmental disasters and atomic wars that would send humanity spiraling into chaos in the centuries that followed. But by the year 3096, Dinac claimed humanity would have entered a golden age. People of that era had developed an entirely new sense called hypervision, which supposedly allowed them to perceive the world in ways we can't yet imagine. Whether this was a metaphor for a higher level of consciousness or a literal new sense remains unclear. The most curious part of Enoch's story is how little he tried to profit from it. He didn't seek fame or fortune by publishing his claims widely. Instead, he quietly entrusted his diaries to his student, adding a layer of credibility to his account. If he wasn't trying to deceive or enrich himself, could his story have some truth to it? Enoch's tale is extraordinary, but he is not the only one to claim unusual experiences during a near-death state. Countless individuals throughout history have reported strange visions and experiences while in comas, during cardiac arrest, or in other life-threatening situations. These are often referred to as near-death experiences, or NDEs, and they typically involve vivid perceptions that occur when a person is clinically dead or close to it. Pam Reynolds, an American singer, had one of the most famous NDEs on record. In 1991, she underwent a highly dangerous brain surgery to remove an aneurysm. To perform the surgery, doctors had to lower her body temperature and stop her heart, effectively putting her in a state of clinical death for several minutes. During that time, Reynolds later claimed that she had an out-of-body experience. According to her, she floated above the operating table and watched the surgeons work on her. She even described the medical instruments they were using and some of the conversations they had, details she couldn't have known from her unconscious state. After this, Reynolds said she was pulled toward a light where she encountered deceased relatives, including her grandmother. Though she was tempted to stay with them, she was ultimately sent back to her body and to life. What makes Reynolds' case particularly intriguing is how closely her observations matched reality. She described the surgical tools and procedures accurately, something she couldn't have known unless her consciousness had indeed been somehow detached from her body. While Reynolds' experience doesn't explicitly involve time travel to the future, it does raise questions about the nature of consciousness and its ability to exist independently of the physical body. If her consciousness could observe her surgery while her body was clinically dead, could it also transcend time? One intriguing aspect of NDEs is the common report of a sensation of timelessness. Many people who have had near-death experiences claim that time either stopped or became irrelevant. This could provide a clue to the possibility of time travel after death. If consciousness can exist in a state where time no longer follows the linear progression we experience in everyday life, it's conceivable that it could experience the future, or even other dimensions of time. Some NDE survivors report prophetic visions, glimpses of future events, or personal flash-forwards, showing what will happen in their own lives. Could these be indications that, under certain conditions, consciousness can transcend the boundaries of time? Of course, stories like Enoch's and Reynolds are anecdotal and difficult to prove. Science, while deeply interested in consciousness and its mysteries, tends to approach such experiences with skepticism. The brain is capable of remarkable feats, especially under extreme stress, and hallucinations or altered states of consciousness could easily explain these experiences. But then we must ask, if our understanding of consciousness is still so incomplete, how can we definitively rule out the possibility of post-mortem time travel? Einstein's theory of relativity already shows that time is not as simple as we once thought. And if consciousness truly does have the ability to exist outside the body, as some near-death experiences suggest, then perhaps the future isn't entirely off-limits. Ultimately, we are left with more questions than answers. Could Enoch's experience in the year 30,096 have been real? Did Pam Reynolds' consciousness truly detach from her body during surgery? And most importantly, could we visit the future after we die? The truth is, no one knows for certain. Science offers explanations that are grounded in the physical world, while personal experiences like Enoch's and Reynolds suggest there may be more to life and death than we currently understand. Theories of time and consciousness push the boundaries of what we think is possible, but until someone definitively returns from the future or the afterlife with evidence, the question remains an intriguing mystery. So what do you think? Is death the end? Or is it merely the beginning of a journey through time?